Welcome back, everybody. This is the Real Dental Podcast, and I have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Hootan Shahidi with me, a man of many parts, DSOs, medical billing, sleep apnea, 3D dentist, digital technology. The list goes on and on and on.
Thank you. Wow, what an intro. Thank you, John, for having me on tonight. We're keeping it so real that I've taken off my work shirt. And I'm having dinner with you while we have this conversation tonight.
There you go. Hey, what do you think about this? This is Lululemon.
Is it really?
The student dental. I gave a presentation at the Student Dental Business Organization for the University of Kentucky and University of Louisville. Really cool guy, man. Friend Bechtel heads it up, and he super cool guy. And he sent me this shirt afterwards. And I was like, what size did you get me? He said, one size fits all, a schmedium. But I like it, man. It's soft. It's comfortable. It's the only Lululemon thing I own. But I had to ask him. I didn't know what it was. I thought they just made like women's leggings and stuff. And he was like, no, man, they make all kinds of stuff. And it's so comfortable. And I was like, well, heck yeah, man. I'll try it out.
So is it comfortable?
Very comfortable.
Good.
Very comfortable. Fits good. The sizes run a little small, kind of like, you know, back in the day when everybody wore Abercrombie. And
Got it.
Extra large, and it fits like a small from Jose Bank. You know, so. But no,
I didn't want to do it to you, but you know, the viewers need to know so they don't find it odd. But you know, kind of one of those days where we're so busy, we're going on vacation tomorrow, so many things going on in the house. So I am, my friend, having a cheeseburger and fries. I love you. I don't want to hurt you, but I just don't want to hide it from you.
All good, man. I've got, I'm about 11 and a half weeks out right now. Feeling good about all that stuff. 11 and a half weeks out for my first show, and then 12 and a half, and then 13 and a half from the two right behind it. They're 3 weeks in a row. So I ought to, I haven't competed in 2 years. I didn't compete last year. Last time I stepped on stage was 2019. And I was a light heavyweight. I thought I was going to be coming in at heavyweight this year. But
and for those who are just meeting you for the first time tonight, what is it you compete in?
Bodybuilding.
There you go.
I'm mediocre at best. So we're gonna see how this year goes and see if there's actually any kind of a amateur future, you know, ahead of me. But I should come in a lot bigger light heavyweight this year. So I'll weigh in the same, but I'll be a bigger, improved version of what I was. I'm pushing 40, man. My body doesn't do what it used to do.
I understand. I'm just a little bit older than you.
Yeah. But no, I like the food, man. I haven't had a true cheat meal, like cheeseburger and fries in over 2 years.
I know, we were talking about it the other night at dinner. So that's why I particularly felt bad when my wife brought this home. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
No.
It's all good, man. I eat so the only time I really even crave anything is like the latter stages of prep. Like I'm not even craving anything right now, but when my carbs get low, I'll start having some cravings. During the off season, man, I eat so much food. The last thing I think about is wanting to eat something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so. But no, it's all good. But we were right before I started the recording. We were talking. I had a little project that I was doing on the side. You know, Crown Tenant, Andrew Reapy, and Jason Price.
Yes,
I had the problem with my project was everything was done. The bank was ready to fund it, and it was ready to rock and roll. And then the guy that was going to build the building for me backed out and said, "Well, with the construction market the way it is, you know, I'm not comfortable, you know, putting a building together right now." And that was the only thing that was left was the LOI on the lease. And so I had to push the pause button on the project. And then I found a space right in the heart of my hometown. It used to be a Snap Fitness that apparently came out during COVID. So not quite as big of a space as I was hoping for, but my equipment guy says that it's going to work. And I can get probably 85, 90% of my equipment list in there. So that's great. Smaller space, a little bit smaller project. But I shot the lease. Those guys are smart, man. I'll never underestimate getting support from someone who specializes in a certain space, because I know enough to be comfortable, with respect to real estate conversations and lease negotiations. But I sent that thing over to them and he was like, wait, man, we need to look at this. We need to look at this. He was like, rather than a 5-year term with 3 options of renewal to renew, you need a 2-year term. If they want a longer term, you need to get a termination clause in there. We need to find out who's responsible for the HVAC unit. I mean, he started just rattling off all these things. I was like, shoot, man, I'm glad we talked. So yeah. I had to shoot an email off to the landlord to see, to attempt to negotiate those points. So hopefully it'll all work out. And I'm shooting for like a July grand opening.
Congratulations.
So you can come down, man, if it's after my show. I think my last show's the last 2 weekends of July, first weekend of August. And so I'll bring you up to Tullahoma the second weekend of August, and I'll train, and then we'll go eat cheeseburgers.
I'm down for that. As a matter of fact, I told Sully I owe him a trip up, this summer. So you might see me in the Nashville area in the next few months.
Oh yeah. Cool, man. I was just talking to him a couple of weeks ago. We were kind of playing phone tag back and forth, but I'm trying to line up a series of events across the Southeast with him. Put something together on clinical dentistry, technology, practice management, kind of tie those things together, Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
But yeah, I'd love to do that.
So yeah. Speaking of the, I guess, side hustles, I wouldn't say side hustle, but as you know, but maybe some of your viewers don't, I still own Code Medical Billing, but as you said in the intro, I've also added the DSO world to my skill set, I guess, if you will. And so I'm helping a DSO in Atlanta, Dent First. And, I really should take that back. When we say DSO in dentistry these days, it almost immediately elicits a response of, 150 offices or 500 offices or 800.
And corporate dentistry, people immediately assume it's corporate private equity.
So there's got to maybe be a term for the in-between, because Dent First has 14 locations and they're in the metro Atlanta area. So maybe more of a group practice rather than maybe a DSO, certainly not on the level of a 800 or 900, 1100 office type operation. And really, I did that because Code is in a very healthy, great place. It runs really well. I'm still in Atlanta, so I help out when I can at night, or if there's an emergency issue, I'm nearby. But it's been fun to get back in management. I originally started in management, which is how I started Code, was because while I was managing dental offices, I realized there was a need for medical billing. And so I took that detour. But from graduate school, which was in health management till now, that's what I'd done, minus the 8 years I managed and operated Code. So it's been fun. It's been awesome. So the other part of it is I feel like I'm, really back in it hands-on. So, when you get in the lecture circuit and when you have your own kind of company, maybe you feel this way too, John, like, except you go to practices more than me, so maybe not. But, I started realizing kind of, while I'm fundamentally very sound in dentistry and, how to do things, and I hang out with a good crew of people, you still don't know all the little nuances until you really sit in a practice for 4 to 8 hours straight. And you just see all the different mechanics and parts working. And then you could really diagnose issues a lot better.
Yeah. I totally agree. That's where I feel a little naked sometimes, is I don't have even though I go in and do observation periodically, I'm not an office manager, right? So I'm not in the practice from 8 to 5. I'm with my clients periodically. They bring issues to the table. We navigate those issues, and I'm more of a facilitator and a coach. Because one of the things I believe is that if the people in the practice grow, the practice is going to grow. And that approach has served me very well in my career. And so I think that some practices will outgrow the people. So it's kind of like I was having this conversation with a team the other day. You've got $1 million people, $2 million, $3 million people, right? And your $1 million people aren't going to take your practice to 3 million, right? They just don't have the skill set. They don't have the mindset. And so one of the things that we spend probably 80% of my time doing is coaching and trying to encourage and coach and facilitate the growth from a $1 million person to a $2 million person, right? And then the side effect is that the practice grows. Mm-hmm. But, I'm recruiting some coaches right now, and I had several interviews over the last few days. I'm hiring a coach for Greenville, South Carolina / Asheville, North Carolina, and hiring a coach for Arkansas, and had 2 really, really strong candidates come out that are going to be auditing training universities coming up. But naturally, one of their questions were they have backgrounds in executive coaching. And one of their questions were, what's a typical day-to-day look like? And I was reminded of a conversation I had with Patterson Dental a few weeks prior, when their reps asked me what's the number one challenge that dental practices face, and my opinion. And without question, I said it was communication. I said, hands down, communication. Communication from the leadership, communication between team members, communication with patients over the phone, communication with yourself. And so that's really where we spend the vast majority of our time, is leadership development, communication, improving communication skills, intrapersonal and interpersonal, and helping people just understand and adapt to more of a team-oriented approach. So It's a lot more emphasis on culture, because most practices out there, I think, have good systems. You might need to refine them a little bit, but for the most part, they've got pretty good systems. Every now and again, man, you'll look at a practice and you'll be like, dude, what are you doing? You'll find a fee-for-service practice in the heart of Atlanta, and their fees are in the 40th percentile. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he was like, well, I've got to compete with these insurance-driven practices. I'm like, no, you don't. And even if you did, and if that's what you want to do, go do that. But for the love of all that's holy, put your fees in the 80th percentile and then go and network with insurance companies, because most insurance companies will reimburse up to the 80th percentile. And so if your fees are in the 40th percentile, you're leaving a lot of money on the table. So I use the word ignorance. There's a lot of things that I'm ignorant about. I don't say that with a negative connotation. It just means lack of knowledge, right? There's a tremendous lack of business knowledge, in dentistry. I think it's getting a lot better, though. I think there's a lot of people like me out there, a lot of people like you out there that are spreading good information. And so I think with the resources and the information that's available, I think it's getting a lot better than it used to be.
I agree. And I think, well, you and I have discussed some of the negative ramifications of social media at times. And it's easy to focus on negative things in life. But if you actually think of the positive side and think about all the connections, you and I have made with various doctors across the country, the things that we've been able to see and share, I think that's actually overall net been positive. Again, while there might be some negative to it, if I was to put it all together, it's probably 80, 90% net positive. Some great clinicians out there showing a lot of great cases for free, showing their work, discussing their techniques, sharing feedback. The information that's available is just so tremendous. And it's hard to believe, especially for a certain generation, that they would not be accessing components of that. It might be you watch some free CE by someone you admire on YouTube about radiology, about oral surgery. And, that was not something that was realistically possible 30, 40 years ago. So there's a huge collaborative part. And while there might be some people who spread bad information or, give kind of misleading information, that's really, honestly, if you think about it calmly, it's really rare.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, there's a lot of good information out there. Now you got to be careful, but it's there.
Mm-hmm. Access. Yeah. So access to information is a lot better than it used to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You've got a lot of Facebook groups. I mean, I'll see I'm in a number of different Facebook groups where somebody will present a question. You'll have 50 people answer. Right. It's like, wow, man, that's a good place to go get information.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it's you've got to take various viewpoints and decide and kind of, marinate on those and decide what's the best option for you, because there is some bad information out there. But I think if you take the time to think it through, I think you can figure out what the good information is and what the bad information is.
I think so. I definitely think so. And I mean, even from a layman standpoint, like myself, non-clinician, when I see someone post something and when the 50 responses come in and I see like 43 of the dentists say the same thing,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll probably like that, right? If I didn't know any better. And maybe the 3 or 4 answers that are different, I'm not saying they're wrong, but at least there's a statistical trend of if I was looking for where to start, hey, you know what? God, 42 out of these 50 people said that. Well, let me look more into that. Then I could do actually more academic research. But at least I have a quick, help forum, if you will, where I can at least be pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, that's a lot different than having 20 people respond with 20 different answers. You're kind of like, well, I'm in the same place I was when I started. Right? No idea which direction to go.
Right. So, and then, being on the DSO side, or I should say in group practice, not really DSO, with Dent First, it's been a great opportunity because they brought me on as the director of clinical operations. So one of the things that entails is bringing on doctors and, recruiting them and trying to hire them and keep them happy and develop them. And even before I got into the development part, which has been a lot of fun, we just got back from T-Bone's digital implant continuum in North Carolina. We took some of the docs there, but
that's in Chapel Hill now, right? Didn't he buy a place in Chapel Hill?
Wake Forest.
You
got confused with the other university.
Yeah. That place is nice, man.
It's beautiful. Come by and visit one of these trips. And,
he's got several bedrooms, and the people stay there.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of bedrooms. Then kind of where us mentors sleep.
Yeah,
we have some bunk beds. Like
that's what I was going to ask, if it's set up kind of like a hunting cabin. Man, you'll go to a hunting
or like a dorm or like a fraternity. And then there's actually some more bedrooms above the actual classroom area. So and that's just a crazy experience, and I'll certainly get into that a little bit. But in regards to kind of meeting dentists and sort of seeing, what dentists or who are the dentists out there that maybe don't want their own practice, meeting them, and then the different backgrounds and generations and skill sets. It's been amazing. Having done this many interviews now, just in the first few months, and talked to them, really incredible. Just the vast array of just in the skill set, forget the personalities, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
I know they all went to 4 years of dental school, but it's amazing what the end product, just so vastly different.
Yeah. For those that don't know what a DSO is, for anybody watching this doesn't know what a DSO is, all a DSO is a legal entity. It's just like an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp. It's just a legal entity. You can have your attorney create that. Depending on the CPA, I'm sure some CPAs can create that just like an S Corp. It's just filing certain documents with the state to set that up. But DSO stands for Dental Service Organization. I've heard some people call it a dental support organization, but it's modeled after the medical industry. And basically what a lot of people learned was, if I've got, this is what they learned in the medical industry, and they just have basically copied it going into dentistry. But you'll see sometimes things like joint ventures, right? Where you'll have 2 dentists practicing across the street from one another. Both of them have a CT, both of them have CEREC, both of them have a staff, both of them have rent. It makes a lot more sense to put those 2 together, share the staff, share the CE, share the CEREC machine, one payment on those things. Both dentists theoretically can work fewer days and make more money. So it's really a conversation about efficiency. But the 3 major reasons I've done one of these with Bill Barrett, who is a very, very, very phenomenal resource. in the legal space. He is the CEO of Mandelbaum Salzburg. And one of the things he says is that there's really only, if I can remember them, there's really only three reasons somebody would form a DSO. One of them is because you want to allow private equity in to invest in the business so that you can grow it faster. Because when you start getting 3, 4, 5 locations, financing starts to become an issue because banks are only willing to, you can only leverage those assets so far, right? And so what a lot of people elect to do is, form a DSO, allow private equity in to fund the growth of that business. Another reason is that they want to centralize their operations. So if they've got 5 locations, they, rather than having, people answering the phone in all 5 locations, they'll have like a centralized call center, centralized billing, insurance,
We do.
All that kind of stuff. That's what you guys do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't remember the third one, if it was, can't remember what the third one was.
There's the marketing aspect. There's the maintenance of the locations, maintenance of the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the DSOs control the CE budget.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of variations that come from it. I think it often elicits an entity of 150 more offices. Our situation at Dent First, like I said, is 14 offices, and it actually grew organically. 3 dentists graduated Emory about 40 years ago. And on their own, before it was even popular, they did the way you described it, that they were kind of all, not too far from one another, all relatively still close to Emory University in Atlanta. And they said, hey, why don't we just team up and we'll have more buying power, and each of us has an office and we're young and let's do it. And then, those 3 offices worked out. And then the 3 owners were like, hey, 5 years or whatever had gone by. Hey, why don't we just get a 4th one? And then it became a 5th. And then so very organically and slowly it grew. So one of the reasons possibly we're at 14 offices and not 1,400 offices is that private equity money never came into the equation.
Right.
So, which for me, the cool factor for me is that my ability to affect change is very swift because I don't have so many layers and buffers. So I can go to the owners, present something, they could hate it, they could like it, they could love it, they could veto it. And then pretty much very quickly it starts rolling out. And that's also because it's only 14 locations and not like 200. That's another part of it. But
you don't have to go to the COO and then the COO check it off, send it over to the VP to make sure we can afford it.
And then in-house counsel needs to verify it. And then once the legal department's done, HR has to give it a quick look over, and then the CFO funds it. It's just what I don't even know how you get stuff done in that environment. But that could be my own ignorance, but it doesn't sound fun. And I was looking to be somewhere to affect change relatively quickly because it's funner. Not to say that people who affect change over 5-10 years, that's not important. It certainly is. It's just, it's not for me, at least now. So I've enjoyed it. I mean, we've done some pretty incredible things in the last 4 months, and and I'm still, they've been gracious enough to let me be flexible enough to still teach with T-Bone and 3D Dentist and keep that going. I'd like to say for any DSO owners or, large practice owners or whatever you want to call it, initially I was kind of, when I was first searching for the job, I was like, well, I don't know how this is going to work out, if I could keep it. And one of the things that was nice and certainly an advantage that I had was I'm friends with a lot of DSO owners, or I could get to them by 1 or 2 friends and, break a lot of the ice. But a lot of them came back with like, no, why in God's name would we stop that? Please, you being out and doing all these different lectures and courses and being with these different docs, it only fuels more ideas and keeps you kind of out there. Why would we want to take that away? I would recommend to other, DSO type owners or people who are looking for people in the executive world, if somebody's doing something else that could benefit your practice, you might want to keep them doing it. So let's say if you were to somehow cut down fortune and you do what you do and you go all these different offices, different environments, different cities, different states, and a DSO wanted you, for example, John, I would probably say, hey, can you keep doing that a little bit? Just because of that different perspective, being around different people, different ideas. I think sometimes when we're at the same company, at the same position for 10, 20, 30 years, while that certainly shows a lot of loyalty, it could have some negative ramifications too, because you start losing sight of, well, what's going on in the universe outside of my universe.
Right. Makes a lot of sense. Your schedule probably looks a lot different now than it did. Like I like having the autonomy and freedom in my schedule, right? And all that kind of stuff. This is one of the questions that popped up on the interviews I was doing with coaches is a lot of people are scared of like 100% commission, which you're a business owner. That's what you get, right? Right. It's a eat what you kill business. And that's scary to a lot of people, but it was scary to me too. But now I've grown to really appreciate the autonomy and the freedom I have in my schedule. And I also really appreciate not having a limit on my income. So I can really earn however much I want to earn. It's not a limit. So you kind of went the opposite direction. You went from, business owner. Well, you're still a business owner, but you're.
No, I guess it wouldn't be the opposite direction because what I did was, and I'll mention him because it's probably funny if he sees this video. Andre Sheardon, Eagles draft guru, he came down to Atlanta. Like this was like 3 or 4 years ago, and he's like, I saw that he was coming down. I was like, hey, let's hang out, whatever. So I get off work and I go meet him up. So we started talking. I tell him about code, and he's like, oh, so you don't have a business? And I'm like, bro, I just told you about it for the last 10 minutes.
I know where it's going.
And he goes, but you just came from there, right? And I was like, yeah, I worked there. And he's like, yeah, you don't have a business. You have a practice. And I was like, okay, I got it. So, his thing was like, I always tell dentists that if you are still there and you're the primary producer, while you do have a dental practice, you do not own a business. A business is something you own that you no longer work there, and it literally functions the same. And that stayed with me. It honestly bothered me, not in a bad way, but I was like, damn, and even though Andre looks younger than me, he's actually older than me. So, I appreciate his wisdom, and he's an incredibly smart guy. And I was like, damn, geez, this is really bugging me.
Yeah.
And as the years went by, I thought, okay, I got to try to do it. And I had kind of set it at the 7-year mark. And then COVID happened and I couldn't pull away at that time because just the sheer, think back, March of last year, there was a couple of weeks where we all kind of didn't know how the next few months would play out.
Right.
I had flirted with the idea and talked to some people, but nothing really, stood out as, me wanting to do it, or that maybe the code team was ready. So, one of the things that I was pretty big on during that time was I wanted them to work and I wanted to, keep them happy. And so I had to fill the time. Mm-hmm. And because I had so much time, I was able to think about things much more clearly than ever. I know COVID has left a lot of negative things for us, but again, focusing on the positive, I was able to focus on my team, trainings, how do we do processes? Because, the phones weren't ringing, there was a lot of people at home submitting claims to keep their cash flow going. But for example, our pre-auths had dropped to 0 at one point almost. So we had a lot of time. And then that's when I realized, okay, this might be my chance. I'm finally and more or less I've had the same team since I started the company. I've been blessed in that sense. And they're like family. So I was like, okay, this could work. And then when I started really kind of flirting to getting serious about it, one of the things I realized that COVID had done is, a lot of people left dentistry, and it's kind of hard right now to find an assistant or hygienist, but the people who are really good at what they do in dental, the demand for them became higher and the compensation became more, in my opinion, acceptable. Job, like the kind of job I do.
Acceptable. Sorry to interrupt you. When you say acceptable, do you mean paying higher wages?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Paying
more became more acceptable
because they realized the sheer, how important their teams are to some extent.
Right.
That, they're very valuable contributors. Yeah, they may not be able to do a root canal, but they're what may possibly makes your root canal possible by selling it, following up the patient, checking the insurance back, whatever it is they do, And so that was all the way at the bottom. As you know, there's a real serious assistance struggle in many big cities, all the way to the top. So I think some of the larger DSOs and those types of, multi-location practices realized, okay, damn, like we really need people who think on a different level and are really good at what they do. And, for example, just shooting out easy numbers. If there's, let's say you have 10 offices and each does $1 million. So that's $10 million. And, you've kind of had somebody that you paid 60 grand for the last few years running this $10 million. And that's roughly where you've stayed. Are you really losing money if you now go get someone quality at 120 grand, they take you from 10 million to 13 million?
Yeah.
And I think a lot more companies made that connection. And I saw it. I mean, just as July, August, September, October rolled out 2020, I was like, okay, this is just trajectorying up. And it's becoming more reasonable. I remember
I always laugh when I hear a dentist say something like, I'm the only one in this practice that's non-replaceable. And I'm like, I
don't know about that one.
Yeah, that's not okay. Eliminate all of your people today and see how much money you make tomorrow. Right? I mean,
right up.
It is. Simon Sinek says it best. He says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You're going to get a lot further, a lot faster if you surround yourself with the right people. Get them all aligned behind what the desired destination is and give them the resources to help you get there.
Yeah. And then, I started talking to companies and it was, kind of good. And then Dr. Dabowski, who you met, who's the chief operating officer at Dan First, we went to sushi, if you remember,
yeah.
a month or two ago. He was a friend and I kind of just reached out to him to see if he could introduce me to other people. And then that's how our conversation started. And I liked him to begin with as a person, which had a lot to do with the decision, but just a really great company, good people. And again, I thought I could affect change. And yeah, it's been a fun ride. So yeah, dentistry is management is back in my life. So
yeah, what surprises me, man, is that they've gotten from where they started to where they are now with doing completely startups.
Yes, that's right. You were shocked that night.
I would give them very different advice. I would say, I know you're not the one that told them to do all the startups, but I'm just like, man,
the company started when I was a year old.
there are times I think when startups are very appropriate, right? But for the most part, man, with the number of practices that are out there and the number of retirement age dentists that are still practicing, they're just looking for a transition opportunity. I think people get it stuck in their head that they have to be inside the perimeter in Atlanta, whereas if they were just willing to go to Carrollton or Columbus or outside of Atlanta, 30, 60 minutes, man, they would make a killing, and you're still within an hour of the city, but I mean, my whole concept is rather than go to the bank and get a $600,000 loan, hope it breaks even before my working capital runs out. Right. That's very risky. I would rather, buy a practice that's got 1,700 active patients that is the dentist is basically just checking hygiene and maybe some patchwork. So there's a lot of restorative dentistry built into the patient base. There are numbers that we look at to find that kind of stuff. Backlogged hygiene department, look for growth opportunities within that patient base. Buy that practice for $600,000. And in 2 years, it's doing $2 million.
Hopefully. I mean, another model that doesn't get talked about a lot, but I know some people throughout the country that do it is, they have a very state-of-the-art, combing, CEREC, high-end type practice, and there might be a $600,000 practice that, film x-rays and, old computers and stuff. And what they end up doing is actually purchasing all the charts and the patients.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done several of those.
That's also, for some people, that's been a good one. I mean, I don't know the transition numbers in world as well as you do, but I know that's worked for some people. And yeah, startups are tough. What is a little bit different here in this particular circumstance with Dent First versus maybe kind of some of the other companies you worked for or worked with, because they've been in Atlanta for 40 years, there is a pretty strong market recognition within Metro Atlanta. So what you might perceive as a startup is not entirely a startup. So for example, their 14th office, which is in Alpharetta, it is in between the Cumming and Perimeter office, just west of the Johns Creek office. So a lot of patients were already living there, driving to these 3 different offices. Right. We just saved them, in terms of our existing patients, a shorter drive. And so, a huge chunk of our new patients are just literally like a neighbor telling a neighbor, a friend telling a friend type thing. So it's still a lot of word of mouth, and it's a good reputation. Some of the, I guess, if you want to call it newer DSOs, they've only been around for 2 years, 3 years, 7 years, so for them, it's a little bit different than in our case. So it's not fully a startup. But like I said, when we were at dinner, we're open to it. It's just that nothing coincidentally has really come up that, was looked right and would fit our current model. But we'll see how it goes over the next few years. I will say this from
your where y'all hit, which is your goal to get to 25, 30, stay at 14?
I don't know. Only because, kind of where I come from and sort of my circle and how I would do it is try to maximize the 14 offices to really, because in traditional dentistry, maybe let's say going from 1 office to 2 office, the guy or girl works, 8 to 5, Monday through Thursday, maybe 8 to 4, maybe Monday through Friday. It gets busy, they open a second office. In our case, because Monday through Thursday, we're open from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Friday from 9 to 6, and Saturdays from 8 to 12, there's a lot of hours to fill. And then on top of it, a number of our offices have a lot of chairs. So once the dollar per square foot is maxed out, or I know we're approaching it, then I would probably want to go for 15, 16, 17. Or if I'm close, because, by the time you find a place, you get the permits, you get the architectural plans, you build it, the process can take some time. So as soon as I approach it, and we're not quite there yet, but as soon as we hit it, probably 15 for sure, maybe 16, 17 simultaneously.
What's the dollar per square foot target?
It's not that I have a number, because demographically, certain parts of Atlanta are very different. So you not fairly assess them at the same dollar value. That's completely unfair. The other part of it is that, 6 ops versus 12 ops versus 8 ops, in some configurations might, let's say, take 3,000 square feet, and another configuration take 400,000 square feet. So an easier way to look at it is there someone or 2 or 3 dentists always there from 8 to 8? Is every chair being used as much as possible? So it's actually more of an eyeball thing, John, that like if I just look and I could kind of see the whole thing being filled on the practice management software, believe it or not, that basically is a big tell. Dentistry itself is so profitable and such a great industry for all of us to be in that if it's full, I don't mean to be mean, but even if you're an idiot, you'd be turning a profit.
Yeah.
So now from there, once that's done, the other part for me, part of that director of clinical operations position is, are we providing the best care to the patients with the best experience? And am I supplying my doctors with all they need to be the best dentist they could be? And if I've done that and I've achieved that and my team is happy and everybody's on the same page, then not only 15, but how about 15, 16, 21, 27, 30? Like, once it's all founded, and like I said, I just got done with my 4th month. So once those foundations are set, I think anything's possible. Just like building a house, once that foundation is done and it's right, then sky's the limit on terms of what you build on top of it.
Yeah, I'm like you. I like your perspective on that, because I work with several of my clients are like 2-3 location, right? And then you've got 14 location, right? So there's the dynamic is very different between one location and 14. The dynamic is very different between one location and 3, and very different between 3 and 14, right? And so the way I typically approach growth is it really has to do with the schedule. So, and there's some variables in there. So, for example, if a doctor's starting out, right, I've got a startup over in Asheville. He's going to start out with an admin and an assistant. And so he's going to do his own hygiene. There's a point at which, it makes sense to hire a hygienist. What's that point? To me, it is when I can't get major restorative on the doctor's schedule in 2 to 3 weeks, or I can't get a recare patient into the hygiene schedule in 6 to 8 weeks.
Good example. It's the same.
I'm there. I need to add an assistant. Then I would add a second assistant. Then I would add, have those assistants become expanded duties, right? Maybe there's a piece of technology in there like Celea. If you're effective with Celea and you can reduce or eliminate the time it takes to anesthetize, or you can do dentistry restorative, minor restorative in multiple quadrants simultaneously. So now it's not 4 appointments, it's 1, right? So it's consolidation, it's efficiency. So if there are opportunities to get more efficient, then do that. And then on the hygiene schedule, once it's, 6 to 8 weeks and you can't get recare on your schedule, add another hygienist, add another day. And so once you've maxed out all of your operatories, okay, and let's say you're participating in 5 insurance plans, right? And let's say you're landlocked, like you can't build on, like you may choose to blow a wall out and add operatories, or you may not have the option to do that. So let's say you're landlocked, like you're limited to 7 ops. Okay. You're in network with 7 insurance plans and you are there. You can't get recare on the hygiene schedule. You can't get major restorative on the doctor's schedule. Start backing out of insurance plans and raising your fee schedule to control demand. That facility is not maxed out until it's blowing the doors off of every operatory as a fee for service office.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
And so if you just are dead set on insurance participation, you're going to have to find another building. Right? Or let's say the goal is different. Let's say the goal is, I want to bring in multiple associates and I want to step out of clinical dentistry. Well, the fastest way to do that is going to be with insurance participation, right? Because you can build your active patient base quickly, right? If your goal is to step back and operate more as a specialist, there are going to be more sleep cases, implant cases, all on X cases, ortho cases with 4,000 active patients than there is 2,000 active patients. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I mean, I think you were very sophisticated there. You're 100% right. I'll give you a much simpler version of kind of everything you said. Someone you and I know was talking to me in T-Bone once, and he goes, "Yeah, man, got to open the second location." T-Bone's like, "Why?" The guy's like, "Yeah, man, just God, like, you can't get to see me, for like 10 weeks or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, "Okay, well, what are your hours?" He's like, "Yeah, like Monday through Thursday, 9 to 4, like Thursdays, like 10 to 3, and I take Fridays off." So T-Bone goes, "Well, wouldn't it just be cheaper to get an associate and have them work nights?" Yeah, it was just, like, hold on, time out. There's there's a lot of hours available. There's a lot of, you don't even do Saturdays yet and whatever. So it's really as simple as that. What you're saying is, far more broad and complicated and probably the correct way over 10 or 20 years, but kind of in that immediate sense of, how do I really maximize my operation here? Mm-hmm. I've seen even more heinous. I mean, there was a practice I consulted for in California 8 years ago. Get ready for it, John. Monday through Sunday, Monday from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday from 8 to 5, and Sunday 8 to 5. Yeah, and it was nutsoid. I mean, that place was slammed, right? I saw one in Phoenix a couple years ago. Same thing, 7 days a week. And same thing. I mean, in their Saturday, Sundays, both in the Phoenix example and the California example, they would put up numbers that most people couldn't put up in a month.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Because, when you're talking big cities like LA or Phoenix, like people work a lot of hours, really hard jobs, their time is ultra precious.
Need flexibility.
Yeah. So if you're like, I could bang this crown out at after lunch at 2:00 on Sunday, I'm like, okay, it actually in some markets work. Now that may not work in every market, but
right.
It's really a maximization of what you have, your equipment, over the maximum number of hours you can get it.
That's a very CEO mentality, because you think what's consumers drive the direction a business goes, right? Like if you're focused on your competitors, man, your mind is in the wrong place, right? You need to be focused on your consumers. Your consumers will tell you what they want. And what we've learned about dentistry is, at least right now, consumers want convenience, affordability, and comfort or quality, right? Comfort and quality are hand in hand. They want a provider they trust, that they have a relationship with, right? That's how they measure quality. They don't know the quality of a crown between two dentists. So all the CEO's job is to say, hey, how can I make my dentistry more convenient? How can I make my dentistry more affordable?
Right.
How can I improve the customer experience? And as long as the decisions that you're making are falling into one of those three categories, and you're progressive about that, you're guaranteed to grow. Like you can't not grow.
I agree. I completely agree. And
there's a reason private equity is so interested in dentistry. I'm always a little hesitant not to make controversial statements, but it is.
We need their funding one day in the future.
It's just my opinion, and I can be very, very wrong. But there's a reason private equity is so interested. It's the reason they were interested in medical. Medical's a very, very profitable business model. Dentistry, very profitable.
Medical's very profitable. Dental's very profitable.
You cannot know what you're doing and
do
drop
pretty well.
40 cents to the dollar to the bottom line, right? Chiropractic is like 10%. Veterinary is like 18. Dentistry, specialists in dentistry are 60. So I mean, if I had a bunch of money to invest somewhere, that's a pretty secure place to put my money. And if we make the right decisions, our clients average year over year around 28% growth across the board. Some grow a lot less, some grow a lot more. We might have a doctor triple in 12 months, right? So that's 300%. You take that with the doctor that grew 7. You follow what I'm saying? So, and every practice is different. Some have more growth potential than others. It really just depends. But I mean, if you can get 28% return in a secure environment like healthcare or dental practice, for example, the risk is very low. Man, that makes so much sense. It's makes so much sense why people would be interested, why you've got a group of, very wealthy people that have a gentleman who is, maybe running what am I trying to say? Private equity money management, right?
Hedge fund.
Yeah. And he's identified, hey, I've got this group of dental practices over here that's looking for money. It's projected 12 to 15% growth year over year over the next 5 to 10 years. Here's the investment. And do that. I would 100% do that.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. And I think some of those private equity backed companies do try to run the broader hours and another thing that's pretty common amongst group practices like ours or DSOs is we have a lot of specialists, and part of that is because we want the patient to come back to the same location where they're comfortable and know the team and know everyone, and the specialist just comes there and performs the work.
Yeah.
I know a lot of times, even myself, I've probably been guilty of it. Oh, those DSOs, they're so greedy. They keep everything in house. Not totally true. I mean, yes, there's a profitability to everything we do, but it's really because of the patient experience and the convenience for the patient that we would just like to take care of it all under one roof.
Let me make this comment. Shame on you for knowing what your patients want and knowing how the business model of dentistry works and doing a good job at it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like they're just doing a better job of satisfying patient need than you are.
Yeah.
They're not bad guys.
No, not at all. It's not a bad guy at all. And the specialists still do very great work, whether you saw them in their practice or, they work they're all great. I mean, they'll do a great job. It's just really just trying to make it convenient. And, for the specialists, there's also a level of convenience in that, they get to do what they hopefully really enjoy and love, but they're not marketing. They're not managing a team. They're not dealing with payroll. They're not dealing with, assistants and getting them organized, buying equipment, supplies, treatment plan, closing the treatment plan. There's all those details that sort of get worked out. And I think why, and I could be wrong, that specialty offices will be far more fewer in the next 20 years than they were 20 years ago, is because of that, is because a lot of the DSOs of the world has just made it so remarkably convenient, not only for the patient, but for the provider as well, that, you could have a very easy, literally walk into a building at like 7:38, do what you love, walk out by 5, had an unbelievable day, made really good money, made a lot of patients really happy, provided great care, and you go home and that's it. Like, you literally go home. There's no follow-up, dealing with the water bill and, talking to the landlord. There's nothing. I mean, it's really that relaxed of environment. Some people at the end of the day will be like, yeah, but you don't own anything. Okay. There's a good argument to that you don't own anything, but in the end of the day, that ownership also comes with a price. How do you maintain it? What technologies you add? How do you keep your practice so relevant that when that day comes for your exit strategy, how do you plan to get out? How do you keep its value? That in itself, while it's doable, has its own stress, money, and time that goes into making it. Arguably, in some instances, if you compare a smart, sophisticated dentist or specialist who takes their money and invests it wisely, but doesn't own their own practice, might actually end up better than someone who owns a practice and they dump their money in that, but aren't really good business people. Mm-hmm. Now, there's some practice owners that are just brilliant, including my own friends, phenomenal business people. Mm-hmm. But you and I know on the other side of it, frankly, we've met a lot of people where we're like, you really shouldn't own your own practice. Yeah. This isn't working out. It's hurting you. It's stressing you out. It's hurting your family. You're a great dentist, but this particular route might not be for you.
Right. What's at that level? So I'm intimately familiar with what it looks like from 1 to 3, right? At the DSO level, or not the DSO level. I mean, you can have one practice and have a DSO. And also, let me clarify, not all DSOs are corporate owned.
That's correct.
Right? Like, you've got a lot of what they call,
that's absolutely right.
That are privately owned. They're not publicly owned. They're not private. There's no private equity involved. It's a few dentists that wanted to have multiple locations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can't corporate and DSO are not synonymous, right? They're two very different things. Or I should say not corporate, I should say private equity DSO.
I understand what you meant.
Yeah. But what are the primary obstacles at that level? 14, 15 locations. Like, where does the game change the most?
I don't know about the past. I mean, I just know in my time, the biggest issue for us, and this is specific to Atlanta, Georgia, is really just finding the right team members as you grow.
Mm-hmm.
Because you certainly could get somebody who, is an assistant or has a certain skill set. But to your comment, do they fit your culture? Now, I think every business could always improve and revisit their culture and really do a love tap, if you will, checking to see where they are, pinging, am I in the right place where I want to be with my culture? And, Dent First certainly has one. So that's one of it, is that, are you an assistant that'll fit with us and work within our model? Are you a patient service representative will be great? Are you a great benefits coordinator? Are you a great treatment coordinator? Because, it doesn't maybe seem like it, but when you, for example, add a great dentist, all right, really skilled, how many chairs are they going to work out of, John?
3.
Okay. How many assistants is that going to need?
2.
If they're really good, how many calls are going to come in on their behalf per day? Right. So when you start doing the math, while it sounds really great and let's, go to office 15, 16, 17, or office 10,000 or office 500, when you really start adding it up, the support team is pretty incredible to produce that $1 million.
Yeah.
How it interacts, how the patients move, are the benefit coordinators ready? Because this dentist doesn't want to participate with all of our networks. He wants to be out of network with 4 of them. This specialist wants to be completely out of network. Are you capable and ready to collect up front, assign the benefits on these claims to the patient, have the check go to them? I mean, are you ready to be that dynamic? And, can you support? So that's it's a lot trickier, like I said, than it sounds. Just like you identified, 1 or 2 call people, 1 more benefit coordinator, 1 more treatment coordinator, 2 more assistants. So that's like 7 or 8 people that you're adding to that village to support this one dentist.
Right.
If it's a specialist, it could get a lot worse. It could be, 4 or 5 assistants, especially if you're talking about anesthesia and surgery and all that, becomes a little bit more complicated. So that's probably been the biggest struggle.
Not so much finding the associate.
The associate hasn't been too hard. And I think one of the reasons for that is because of Atlanta. Because I live in what most people, a lot of people, not most, but a good number of people that at least I run into that think it's a great city, think it has a good economy, has pretty good weather, pretty nice people, a lot of smart people. Most people don't know, but Atlanta is actually the public health capital of the world, starting with the CDC, which is next to Emory. What's that?
CDC's in Atlanta.
Yeah, the CDC, which is right next door to Emory, the American Heart Association, the American Cancer Society. So a lot of smart people. Netflix is here. So we have a huge entertainment. The hip hop scene is big in Atlanta, the kind of Southern rap scene. So there's a lot of production companies and music companies. So that's a huge advantage for me. Like, people want to be here, live here. I was just talking to some of the other doctors today. Atlanta, I think in '95, before the Olympics, Metro Atlanta had about 1.5 million people. It's a little over 6 now.
Yeah.
So that's an incredible leap in 25 years.
I bought some real estate down there back then.
So that's a huge advantage. And that's kind of one of the other discoveries about this sort of interview process, and something for maybe some of our more mature audience to think about, because it's something that I've noticed some more mature dentists have trouble kind of understanding, is they, for whatever reason, maybe jealousy or whatever you want to call it, hating on them, they'll see a younger dentist and be like, oh, all that stuff he's doing or she's doing, it's just, that's all money driven. No.
People will attack what they feel attacks their limiting beliefs.
And it's like, no, but yes, to some extent, because, when you graduated dental school in 1990, you finished off at about $150,000 at 2% interest.
Mm-hmm.
This young man or woman finished off at 500 grand at a 7% consolidation.
Mm-hmm.
They have no choice but to get good, fast, real quick.
Yeah.
So, some of the people I've interviewed that are in the age range of 29 to 33 have a broader skill set than some of the dentists I've interviewed who are in their 50s.
Oh, yeah.
So not only a broader skill set, but at 2 or 3 times the speed. In terms of, for example, there are dentists who kind of the way that they flow, or the specialists, the way that they flow, it would take approximately 7 to 10 visits to get an implant done from beginning to end to when the crown gets placed. Whereas some of these younger dentists, it's just right on the spot, cone beam, STL, send it to the lab, come back. It's like boom, 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 boom. The whole thing is done in 3 or 4 appointments.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Implant placement, surgical guide, impression, abutment, crown, I'm out. So it's been remarkable in that sense. So I'm incredibly impressed with these youngsters. Not to say I haven't met older dentists who are skilled. I have, but there are some, for example, that I've interviewed, and they're great people, and they're certainly a home for them within Dent First, but or any other poly company. But they'll be like, "Yeah, I don't do extractions." I'm like, what? Or they'll be like, "Yeah, I've stopped just doing endo."
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I don't know how you came up with that decision. I mean, are you bad at it? Like, do we need to talk about that, or why is the reason?
Patients still need it. Your patients still need it. So when you choosing to do that, let's say you just don't like molar endo, and you just don't like extractions, perfectly fine. But your patients still need that. And so now, as a CEO, you're making a decision to make dentistry less convenient for them and less affordable, because a specialist is going to charge them more for that extraction than you would charge for that extraction in a general practice. So if you want to make the right decision that serves the interest of your patients, it would be to bring an associate in to do the stuff that you don't want. You don't want
right. So that's the more advanced. So you're getting a little bit more advanced. So the kind of the more advanced step from that is, hey, that's awesome. I support that the type of person you are and what you like and don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put you in Office X. Dr. Jon Harris there, he just loves extractions and endo. And God, if you could just free him up on the restorative, which you seem to really like, I think the two of you would be a good match. And so part of that, when I was telling you to maximize the 14 offices, it's not just to get every chair and all the hours filled. That's certainly the easiest, just quick glance. But when you get into the narrow part of it is, you know what, Dr. Shahidi, that guy loves veneers. He hates OS, but Dr. Harris does. Let's team them up.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Smith versus Dr. Williams, they complement each other well, so that, to your point, the patient experience is still good. We are addressing their needs in a timely and effective manner. Yeah. If I was to put 3 dentists in the same office, and all 3 hate extractions and refuse to do them, basically, then it becomes embarrassing, because if you're dying in pain and there's no chance in hell your tooth is going to get restored, I have to now, after I've charged you for the limited exam and PA, I have to give you the bad news that you're going to go to the oral surgeon and pay for another consult and some more x-rays. That's really not cool. That sucks. But again, if you couple it right and you put the right team together, it could be fine. You're
creating a more comprehensive skill set with more than one person, right? So
yeah, like I've seen every
skill set, so that the skill set that is present in the practice is more comprehensive. However, that's great. But what if those 2 people don't get along?
I honestly have not run into that yet. And I know that's because maybe I'm not dealing with 50 or 100 offices. I will say overall, professionally, people are very courteous.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, our offices are so well established. They're so busy. I really don't know how much time they get to interact with each other, but yeah, it's a pretty professional environment. And then certainly my people like me within the DSOs or group practices, our job is to work on that sort of stuff. Maybe we just need to go to dinner, all of us tonight, and let's just not talk about dentistry.
Yeah.
Maybe you both need to realize you're both parents. Maybe you both need to realize, you both have a love of boating. Maybe you both need to realize you like to play basketball. I mean, it could be as easy as that to solve, just some team building. And let's not talk about dentistry, something like that. But it's been pretty good. Then where it could get really good is, once they understand each other. The last office I visited before I came home tonight, those two doctors are really good. I mean, they're great together. So Dr. A, for example, like, let's say he gets the patient I told you, right? He literally will be like, hey, you know what? Hold on one second. I'm going to go confer with my colleague. Then he'll go a couple ops over and he'll get the other doctor who loves surgery. And he'll be like, hey, do you have some time in the next 20, 30 minutes? And, hey, what's up? My patient 31 needs to be extracted. Do you mind doing it? Sure. Numb him up. I'll come over. Or let me come over. I'll numb him up. We'll do it. And so they trade off. Or if the other doctor who loves oral surgery sees a bunch of fillings, hey, you know what? I could do this and I could do a good job. My colleague here, phenomenal restorative dentist. Would you mind, seeing him or coming back for him? And they do that and it works phenomenally well. I mean, the patients, because they're both cool, they're both about the same age. I know that has a lot to do with it. So I'm not trying to make this sound like it's a piece of
cake. You're probably very, very intentional about the people that you hire. And you're probably very selective about the attitudes that you put in there.
I am. That's probably the only thing I'm selective about is the attitude. Otherwise, if somebody's dentistry is limited or there's things that are like, I'm actually pretty okay with that. But if you have a bad attitude, for example, there was a doctor, he's probably going to learn quickly about the real world, but he's a new graduate. So he's almost a doctor, I guess, for official purposes. And we talked and, hey, how are you? And, nice to talk to you. And like, I'm talking right after, like, I'm doing well. Thanks for calling. He goes, so what's the compensation? And I was like, you know what? Don't worry about it. I just, with that question, we're probably not going to be a good fit. And I just hung up the phone basically because not only because of how quickly he threw it out, but the tone. Mm-hmm. It was very like, don't you know you're on the phone with the dentist? Mm-hmm. Yeah, bro, you're like the 60th one I've talked to this week. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I'm not forced to hire you. I'm not going to like, the company's not going to go bankrupt if I don't get you, but that's how bad it came across. So I am sensitive about the attitude, but still, I mean, there's pairings where, maybe we need to switch up or, there's a doctor I talked to yesterday. Yesterday. Unbelievable. John, 33 years old. I could not believe this young man's accomplishments. I mean, I showed Dr. Zabowski the resume. He was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I mean, literally this kid, he's a grown man, kid, because he's younger than me. I'm going to have to guess, ballparking, and I don't know how he did it. He must have spent, and I'm sure he's made it back with the dentistry he does. He must have spent 150 grand after dental school on himself. The amount to which this young man understands CE, and I'm not just talking surgical course, I'm talking management courses, I'm talking just remarkable self-investment. And now he has a skill set that he's actually the highest I've ever seen. So
is he a flat risk for you?
He is something else. So he, and he's not the first I've seen. He's just the most extreme I've seen. Yeah. And I think that the Sullys and the Paymons of the world, that from your Nashville crew there, they've really done a great job of, really elevating the 26 to 35-year-old community and being like, hey, listen, you really got to differentiate yourself. Yeah. You really got to, the way you can grow is not just with new patients, it's with offering more services to make it convenient for them, making it affordable, like you said, John. And I've seen that now a number of times, but this one was unbelievable. So when I went through all the details of his skill set, what he likes, and this is kind of how I've really been doing it the last 2 months, because the first 2 months, it was kind of more just getting in there and just filling it and trying to make it work. And now getting more refined, like I'm like, I exactly know the 2 offices I want him to work in because he will fit those 2 ladies perfect.
Yeah.
Him and these 2 ladies at these 2, I mean, just the way he talks, the kind of mannerisms he had, I was like, oh my God, not only are they going to get along personally wise, but he loves what they hate and he hates what they love. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have scripted it better. It was, so I hope, I get to work with this young man. So that's kind of how I'm thinking of it now, especially because initially, we got a number of good docs hired and that filled some stuff. And now I could really tweak it to get to perfection. And, I think that's the model that we'll probably go with for now, at least, because that's the way I am. And that could be because I'm a little bit more fiscally conservative, I think, than some people. And some of the other companies that have other people's money to spend, they can open up 20 offices and say, well, we'll film when we film. Who cares? The leases are running. I mean, there's dental, I'm not going to say the company's names, but there's dental practices down the street from my house here. The building is literally empty. I mean, in terms of humans, if you look through the window, there's like beautiful operatories and counters and a cone beam, but literally there's no one there.
That's like just about every Castle Dental that I have passed in the last 3 or 4 years. Front retail, it's open.
Oh, it's in an unbelievable shopping center. It's a beautiful shopping center. It's a beautiful dental office, but like
there's nothing in there.
No, and so I know part of the reason for that is because that company, I know that company well. It's not their money, so their worst case scenario is they turn around and tell the investor, I know we promised, we told you it might be 20%. Sorry, you actually lost it all. We messed up.
Yeah. What's your actually? A quick question. You don't want to loan me an associate for 2 weeks, do you?
That's like asking me, do you want to hand me over like about 5 pounds worth of diamonds? No.
I got a 2-week stint. Trust me, they're not going to want to go there. You would not be at risk at losing them because it's a client of mine.
Oh, wait a minute. Would they come back and love me more?
Absolutely.
Then I might be game to help you.
Client of mine over in Carrollton, he's got 2 locations. He's trying to get that 2-week period covered. We're losing that dentist. I'm trying to find a replacement for.
Does that dentist want to move to Atlanta?
What's that?
Does that dentist want to move to Atlanta?
Right. They all want to be in Atlanta, and I'm like,
call me up, man. I'll help you out in Atlanta. Call me up.
What does your training program look like? I'm assuming you've got some kind of a formal training structure in place. Is it like an online video tutorial? Is it hands-on? Is it basically just education on their own, training their people?
Great question. So initially it started with, me inheriting the early part of the vaccine. So in Georgia, the vaccines came online in kind of mid to late December around Christmas. And so, there's that time period as people are getting it and stuff, and people didn't want to like be in a central location and sit next to each other. And so there was that. Now that is coming out, we had a nice meeting in March. And that was a good gauge for me. Not to get too far into details, you and maybe some of your viewers kind of know my background and, lecturing and all that. So the night before, typical, I was finishing up the slides and I was like, damn, I'm keeping it really simple, but it's cool. Let's just start here. It's a good start. Then the next day when I did the meeting, 10 minutes into the meeting, I started past the intro, I started looking into their eyes and I could just see I had gone way too far. I was so far advanced that I was like, oh God, I might've goofed this up. And I was really upset about it. And so later that day, everybody was, the kind of executive team was like, that was probably a lot, but it's good. It's okay. They needed it. They need to know that this is 2021 dentistry and it's fine. I got a lot of compliments, but initially I was like, oops, I might've gone. And I thought I had really held back. I thought the night before I was like, wow, man, this is so basic. And one of the things I learned from that, John, this is a big mistake that I still make. I know my co-lecturers, T-Bone, maybe Aaron, certainly Sully. We all kind of make this mistake, is that you start forgetting certain basic parameters, right? So, for example, if I was to ask you how to make a peanut butter sandwich, you can tell me, well, just get some bread and a knife and put the peanut butter on, right? Mm. The real answer could be, though, you're going to go to the kitchen. You will find a silver 5x8 device that's called the refrigerator. Mm. Open right door. Look in right cabinet, second from top. Peanut butter will be there. Brand is Jiffy. When you start really thinking it out, no. It's not just grab the knife, blah, 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 3 steps. There's actually 178 steps in making a peanut butter sandwich. It's just when you start doing it so long, you've been doing it for so many years, you start be thinking people think like you and people understand what you're saying. And
what you're talking about is what we call chunking sort. Some people chunk in more details than others, right? And somebody who's very familiar and very fluid with the process, it's you ask them the question, they're like, it's kind of like if you're a master chef baking a chocolate cake and you're like, well, how did you do that? Well, I don't know. I just kind of threw these ingredients together and created it, right? They don't really even know the recipe, right? Where somebody that wants to create the same chocolate cake, they need like a detailed plan to get from point A to point B, right? So it's the more intimately involved and the more more comprehensive your understanding is, the more depth of knowledge you have in a particular area, the more global you're going to be, right? Because it's really just the high points that you need to focus on. Where somebody's doing it for the first time, they're like I have, Dave Banco down there. He owns a direct mail company. We do a lot of merger acquisition letters through him. He asked me if I would work with his son and help his son put on some muscle. And I was like, sure, man. His son's like 15. I was like, yeah. And he's got a good build. I mean, he's like got abs, like he climbs walls and stuff, does like competitive rock climbing, like indoor rock climbing. And I wrote him a nutrition program. I wrote him a workout program, and he started texting me constantly. Like, when I do this, how should I do this? And I'm,
there you go. So you learned it too.
I'm like, man, I haven't even thought of these questions in years. Yeah. But he's just now getting started. And I'm like, I understand where the disconnect comes from.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of how I'm looking at it now. So we did that in March, and that kind of, like I said, it was a good temperature gauge for me. I got to test how warm or cold the pool is before I jump in. So we're doing another one in June. I want to keep doing them, and myself and my teammates are going to be doing a lot of those courses. I have a lot of friends, as you know, and so bringing some of them in, basically, using that network of really good friends that I know to do some CE or come through and help out. So they're going to be helping. I might even reach out to you and Reagan. I was thinking about you two today, specifically about something. And then just kind of really, really going that way. And kind of trying to, in terms of what we do corporately, really break it down to those steps, for those who need it, as you said, for those who might be newer to the industry or need that level of detail. And really it came back to it hit me hard in the face last weekend when I was at the Digital Implant Continuum with T-Bone and Sully. One case, T-Bone deliberately honed in on. So we're planning all these surgical cases. We're going to do a bunch of implants Saturday, Sunday. Took one patient, and he did the peanut butter sandwich. He didn't call it that, but that's essentially exactly what he did. And he went to this white, this paper board to write stuff down. And you know how when we're talking, we're like, yeah, use the stent, drill your hole through it, place the implant, whatever. He wrote it out step by step. I think it was 45 moves.
Yeah.
So, talk to the patient, ask them about their medication, get their blood pressure.
Yeah.
You start going like this, and you're at 20 steps, and you haven't even picked up a hand piece yet.
Right. Yeah.
And
there's so much with when teaching somebody something new, there's so much they don't know. that they don't even know what questions to ask.
Right. So
like you could, like, let's say I'm going to walk into the operatory and do a crown. Like you can tell me, okay, pick the hand piece up, remove X amount of tooth, take an impression, here's the 5 steps. And I'm like, there's 100 steps to that. I don't even know what questions to ask.
Yeah, which hand piece, which burr, what speed, how much pressure,
Yeah. And so I tell you a really good question that I found that works really well. I learned this lesson the hard way with an insurance coordinator we hired that messed a bunch of stuff up because she had 20 years of experience filing insurance with Dentrix. We were like, oh, she's turnkey. Let's hire her, plug her in there. So great attitude, great personality. We hired her, we plugged her in. And then our adjustments dropped to nothing. And we're like, well, what happened there? And so she uploaded all the insurance fee schedules into the software so you wouldn't have to do an adjustment on the back end. Right. And so she was filing the insurance fee. We're like, no, don't do that. Right. And so that's what happened. So we fixed it. But I learned a question to ask, and that is, tell me what you know about X. Because if I know what you know, I also know what you don't know. And I know what you don't know. So now I know what you need to learn.
I will use that. That's smart.
Yeah. So why spend, in other words, like I can say, Hootan, tell me what you know about fortune management. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're going to tell me everything that you know. So there's no point in me spending 30 minutes explaining all of that because I know you know it. Let's talk about what you don't know and what you don't know. So now we can consolidate time, save your time, save my time, more efficient.
No, that's smart. I'm definitely going to use that one. I'm going to definitely take that one from you. So yeah, but going back to that digital implant continuum, that's another me sort of, knowing kind of what's out in the dental industry, obviously with admitted bias on the show, obviously Trun and I are very close friends, and I teach at 3D dentist. And so there obviously was inherent bias, but I also, minus that bias, they really do a good job in my opinion. And so that was another thing, was to get the owners who are incredibly supportive of my ideas. Hey, listen, 2 or 3 docs with the right attitude and want to grow, let's take them out there. And so we chose 3 docs and we took them out there. And I'm proud to say that we came back this weekend. So first of all, the digital implant continuum at 3D dentists, there's 2 separate, at least in the format we did, there's 2 separate dates. So the first date we did extraction bone graft membrane. And in between that first set of classes and the second one, they were about 7 weeks apart. We completely made up the entire course fee just in extraction bone graft membrane. We haven't even placed an implant yet. Done. Course is already recouped. Now we're coming back. We came back last weekend, and already our 2 of the 3 docs have an implant scheduled this month. Mm-hmm. So how using, connections, friends, knowing what's out there in the dental industry to really invest in our team, not only financially, but I went with them. And so obviously I'm not a dentist. So my kind of thing there was 4 days in a row of being a cheerleader. Right. Hey, Steve, you could do this. Are you liking it? Are you comfortable? What do you need when you get back? What do you need me to tell your practice administrator? We talk about treatment. So kind of always there to just make them happy and just make them really excited about dentistry. Yeah. I think one of the things that can happen to any career, dentistry obviously being what we're talking about, is sometimes when you lose the love or the passion of what you do, it really permeates through a lot of different things through your actions, your body language, your mannerisms, and people pick up on it. Yeah. Your patients could read it, even though they're not, you don't need to be a smart person to read body language. That's a more intuitive thing. That's not an IQ thing. And so if you could affect change, one of the doctors that went, I don't know how to describe it, but great dentist, great guy. But I think he had hit a point, kind of things were not being exciting anymore. And T-Bone, particularly Sully's father, Dr. Rick Sullivan, had a profound impact on him. And he's just been unbelievable since we got back, happy and laughter and smile and just, excited. And on these text message threads with me and some of the other docs, he shows cool cases. And I'll just share a story with you. This gentleman, when I first presented the course to him, he was totally down to go, but he called me about a week later and he goes, how many implants, are you expecting me to do? And I was like, look, man, take it easy, but you should be able to do at least 5 in the first 6 months after the course. And he goes, God, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do that. I think at this point he's treatment planned like 65 implants. And I think 4 or 5 have said yes already in May or June. I mean, forget 6 months, John. I'm talking like this is just in the next like 6 weeks. And so when he saw that result, and for him, one of the biggest things for him was there was a lady who had been edentulous. I think she was missing number 12. God knows how long. And he was like, hey, listen, you've left this spot empty for a long time. I just want you to know I've gone to this course. You have a lot of bone. I'm very comfortable doing this implant for you. Would you like to do it? She's like, oh my God. The only reason I haven't done it is I hate going to anybody but you. And so if you're going to do the implant, I'll do it. But if it's not you, I'll still leave it empty. And then that really sent him, he was like, wow. Like,
yeah.
And I told him this.
Confidence. Yeah.
Yeah. And I told him this, but when it connected with him on a doctor level, T-Bone, Sully's dad, then it really sank. And for me, that's been an unbelievable reward, is to see such an unbelievable change from mid-March when he had that call to me till almost now mid-May. Just the joy in his eye and the text messages and just, how excited he is. And because of his excitement, his assistants are jazzed up.
Yeah.
His office manager's jazzed up. His treatment coordinator, like everybody's buzzing. And like when you walk in that office now, there's there's a step, everything's just a little bit more crisp. And so it's great. And, I love doing stuff like that. So I continue to I want to keep supporting the team through education, whether I do it or I bring in a professional or expert within that field to do it. But, we only all grow by what we learn. And when we stop learning, that's when we're going to start dying. That's when it all starts going downhill. So
that's a fact, man.
That's my route for now, and it's been going good so far. So, yeah, man, I appreciate this chat. It's
You're very welcome. I was about to say we've been on for almost 2 hours, man.
Almost, dude. It's too easy. It's we're gonna. Do you edit these?
Sometimes if there's something that I need to take out or something like that I might.
Do you ever condense them down to like 30 minutes or 45 minutes?
No. Well, the lady that's doing all of the digital graphics and stuff for me, like this is a Zoom meeting and there will be like a digital graphics overlay before it goes onto YouTube and all that kind of stuff. So I can kind of give her the timestamps and say, hey, I want you to cut this 5-minute segment out and this 5 minutes and this 3 minutes and that 10 minutes and create a series of very short clips.
Oh, I get it.
That I can use for like social media content.
And then typically, so do you do that and then you like somewhere on a platform, you have the whole full length version?
Yeah. The whole video itself will be on YouTube and then like short clips of it will be on Facebook and Instagram.
Well, thank you for allowing me to have my dinner with you.
You're very welcome.
Hanging out with you. I think we were kind of starting to get like once a month, once every 2 months our dinners. I think we slipped there the last few months. So it was nice.
Yeah, I'm coming. I'll be down there next week, man.
I think our last 2 sushi runs were 2 months apart. So let's try to keep it 2 months or less.
Yeah, I'm actually down there next week and the week after.
I am headed to Charleston tomorrow. First vacation with my wife. The last vacation we took was to go see Sully and T-Bone in Nashville.
Yeah.
That was the last weekend of February. So super delighted about that. So I'll be back Monday. So if you want to hang out next week, hit me up. And
yeah, man.
If your viewers need anything, they could reach me at Hootan, Hootan, at codeclaims, CODECLAIMS.com. So Hootan at codeclaims.com. Questions about medical billing or, just the DSO or Atlanta world, I'm happy to answer them. And thank you, man. I appreciate it. Always
wealth of knowledge, man. My pleasure to have you on. And we'll do this again soon.
Take care, John. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good evening.